Yes.
Right.
You know why she worries? Because she always looks good.
Oh, yeah, I do. All right, we're going. All right, everyone, we're opening up here. We know that there's probably going to be nobody on the channel because it's very, very, very late in the night, but we've just decided to have, can you see Nene over there? There's Nene. That is Chief Nene, and here is Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth. Now, what we wanted to talk about today is that, as all of you know, we recently had a case. We went to the court, Sixtus versus Ardern, and we got thrown out on our ear. Now, I wanted to talk to you about. So far, we've had a couple of reviews. We've had a Twitter review, and now when you type in Sixtus versus Ardern, you get to see the Twitter review, and they're asking questions. And one of the things that they didn't see is that I had complained that they're not upholding our Protestant laws, and they had thought that it was a misspelling and that I had said protests. But yeah. But I had never said protests. Isn't it right, Sharon?
It's right, Betsy.
That's right. Not Maxine. I'm not Maxine. Now we have entered a new era. Yeah. As everyone knows, when I first came to the first started doing the common law, the written common law of the 1688 Bill of Rights, and I decided that I was going to take the government to court using the 1688 Bill of Rights, because it does say in the Commonwealth law that it is the only means that we are able to take the government to court and hold the government accountable. And everybody's been saying to me in the common law, you can't do it. They're a corporation. You're going to be blocked. You can't get through the corporation. And I'm going to be talking to you about that today. And I'm going to be telling you some very interesting things about a thing called the Lexis Nexis law. Now, what was I going to say to you? Where I'm up to. So when I started doing it, that I've always said to people that the 1688 Bill of Rights is the will of Jesus. It is actually a will that was given to all of us in 1688, that when all the governments set up and started setting up, and the king handed power from him for the people over to the Parliament House, when the king did that, he didn't send us with no protections. He sent us with the 1688 Bill of Rights, and he said that we would be able to we the people would be allowed to hold the government accountable. And one of the things, another thing that we were given is a thing called now everybody listen up, it's called, I've got it here, you can see it here, you can just Google it in there. Does it come up backwards to you when you look at it, Sharon, or can you see it?
Yeah.
You can see it. So it's called, this is called the Declaratory Judgment Act 1908. Now, each of our Commonwealth countries have this. It's called the Declaratory Judgment Act that was done in 1908 in New Zealand. But I have looked, and Australia's got it, and I'm sure that Scotland, Ireland, and England have got it. Now, the mistake that everybody's making is that everybody's thinking, and either they're thinking or they know, American law is nothing to do with our common law. There are only a few countries in the world that function under common law. And I just found out that some states in America also function under the common law. And it was those states that functioned that got Roe versus Wade overturned, which was the abortion law. The abortion law finally got turned over, and I think that the 1688 Bill of Rights was an essential part, and it was the states that so there are states that are in America that are called Commonwealth states. They're with us. What America has been trying to do is to get us under all of their laws. Now, this will, it's called the will of Jesus, and it's our protections. And a lot of people don't realize that it's in this will that we're able to take parliamentarians to court, that we're able to take even the Majesty herself to court, And this is where we have our power. Our power is not in that parliament. They can change laws at the stroke of a pen.
Yeah.
The only way, what we've got to do is when they're changing laws arbitrarily at the stroke of the pen, we've got to go to the court. And so I've been calling myself Mary walking with Jesus. I am Mary walking with Jesus because I believe 1688 is the will of Jesus, that Jesus came back and left us a will because he didn't want us to go through what he had to go through. So he gave us a will to protect ourselves. And but now, if you've seen the Matrix movie, we're now in the Matrix because we went into the courts, and I've got my friend Maxine, and she's Morpheus. She does all the things that I need to get through the door. I've got my friend Sharon, and Sharon is the oracle. She sends me the interesting secrets. I've got quite a few oracles actually, but Sharon's the main man. She's the man. Well, she's not a man, but she's a woman. But she's the main one sending me the stuff. And to Sharon, yeah,
I'll be the man.
right. Sharon will be the man. So we want to teach you about a thing called the Lexis Nexis law that America has come up with, and we're going to talk to you about a very important law which has been called the Mannix law. Now, the Mannix law has been the blocker monster, the most heinous blocker of all time, because all these common law people have been saying to me, we can't get past the corporation. And what does the Mannix law mean? What they're saying is when you go to the court, right, you go to the court and the court will say to you, the court says to you, you have to be a lawyer in order to bring your case to the court. You can't go to the court as a common law person by yourself. So all these common law people have been setting up these courts, these little courts all over the place. But all these little courts that they're setting up, they've got no power. So you go to them, they make a decision. They say, okay, that guy over there stole my fish. And so the punishment to him is going to be that he has to give me 5 fish in payment. And then the man says, I ain't giving you the 5 fish. And everyone says, what can we do? And there's nothing they can do because it's not solid. They've got no army backing it. They've got no police backing it. They've got no government backing it. So they can't use it, right? But in actual fact, you can actually go to the court with your common law. And then we recently went to the court and we got thrown out because of the Mannix law. What they said, now, if you go and look up the Mannix law, there are dozens upon dozens upon dozens of cases where even lawyers have gone to the court, tried to fight their case, and they've been thrown out based on they didn't understand the law correctly and they weren't completely qualified as a solicitor to pass, all right? And so that's what they said to us. They said, you don't know the law. You can't come in here calling Jacinda Ardern and fighting this government and calling in Chris Barfoy and calling all. You're not allowed to do that. You're just a commoner. Wipe the dust from my feet, they said. And they threw me out. They struck me from the court, didn't they? They struck me with their sword from the court. They did. And they said, Kate Floss, your work is unintelligible. We do not accept your case. You're a lunatic and you don't know law, and we don't want you in here dirtying up our courts with your common law. That's what they said to me. They did. Well, didn't they? Yeah. They did. And so then but one of the things that I was complaining about was Nexis Lexis. So when you go into the Matrix, so I'm Neo now, I've changed, I'm not Mary walking with the well anymore. Now I'm Neo trying to get through the Matrix and get through the door up to the upper realm. We've got to get to the heavenly realm. Now, if you pass the clerk, you've already won your case. So if you pass the clerk, your case goes to the court and it's written up. And you get it on the Google there, you get your name and who you went to court. If you go to the Google and you Google Sixtus versus Ardern, and you'll see my name come up, and there's 2 posts, and both of them have been saying, what's this Lexis Nexis law? So we already won the case, Sharon, haven't we? And yeah, we have. So it's important to get past the clerk, and and then even if they strike you out, it doesn't matter, because you can still appeal. And when you appeal, you get more famous and more famous, because we had Justice Court with us, so we got famous because of that. So then they use this Mannix law on us, and it comes down to being a corporation. And what it says is that the government, and this is what all the common law people are saying, that the government is a corporation. And they're saying, and then under their law, under the Mannix law of being a corporation, that that every corporation, to be fair, must be represented by a solicitor or a barrister, because they say that the average people or the average lawyer doesn't have enough legal knowledge to get through the matrix of the upper heavenly realms of the court. I call them the heavenly realms. And it says it'll be easier for a rich man to get through the eye of a needle. No, it doesn't say that. It says it'll be easier for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than it will be for a rich man to get to the heavenly realm. Is that what it says? And so to get to the heavenly realm, and that is actually true. So if you want to get to the heavenly realm, the thing about this 1908 Declaratory Judgment Act is you're not going to get money from it. You can go there only when you see a point of law that you think that is not good for your country, and that's when you can go there. Now, what has happened is that they've got this law in New Zealand, and they've got it in England, they've got it in Australia, and it's called, in ours, it's in the Human Rights Act, and it's called Section 5, subsection 2, KII, and it says that New Zealand people, they're working towards New Zealand people to be bound by any international instrument in the world. Well, that's just a ridiculous law, because the Human Rights Act, we don't have any power over it. They can change that act anytime, and therefore it's a pretended title of the Crown. It shouldn't really be in our common law countries, but it's got a blocker. So it has to go through a bridging of laws before it can enter our country. And some of the laws that they have in the Human Rights Act, we don't have to follow. It's up to our government to decide if that's a good law or if it's not a good law. But to have this thing, Section 5 KII, where they say that all New Zealand people or Australian people or English people will be bound by any international instrument, once that law comes to power, this is and I just saw a guy up on the Twitter there that was saying it's the de-reformation, is it? What did he call it there? Can you remember?
He asked if it was
All right.
Is this a reformation?
Yeah, he did. He said, so this man asked the question, they're doing Sixtus verse Adern, and all right, hang on. It's on. I can't find it now, Maxine.
Go down to May. If you go to the NZLII.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just go into yours, Maxine, because it shows me. Anyway, so this. All right, so he had said, so this case is about the counter-reformation, right? So the reformation was when we took care of the common law, and we got the common law put into power. And we said, we pay the Parliament, we pay the King, we pay the Pope, we pay everybody, and therefore we want to have the power over the people that govern us. And we want to have the power to manage our own laws. And so that was called the Reformation, where they removed all the church leaders. There was separation of church and state. They removed all the church leaders, and then they put us in power of our own people by elections, and that was called the Reformation. But this guy here is calling it the Counter Reformation. They're saying that my case is about the Counter-Reformation. I've just realised what they're up to, and that is this Counter-Reformation that they're up to. And so anyway, I wanted to prove to the common law people that we could get into the court, but the Mannix prevented me from doing that. Well, I wanted to tell you about this, why our countries are having so much trouble. We've been the victims of a scam, and it's because of this Lexis Nexis law. So I've started doing my report. You can go and look up Lexis Nexis yourself. And what I'm going to explain to you is where did all our law come from? And when you know where all our law come from, and you're going to realize why we're not able to get through the matrix and we're not able to get into the courts anymore, and it's because this Lexis Nexis corporation is preventing us from doing that because of the new Counter-Reformation. So in order to understand, when you go into the matrix and you're into the matrix with Neo and Morpheus and the Oracle and all of us, if you want to go into the matrix, what you'll notice in the matrix is that he has to move between time. He has to go back hundreds of years, and then he has to come back into the present. Then he has to go back another 100 years. And this is why everybody's confused with Kate Flosser, because they're seeing me darting around from country to country, different time frames. Sometimes I'm in the 1800s, sometimes in the 1600s. Sometimes I went all the way back to the time of Jesus when I was talking about the court of the hewn stone and the court of the unhewn stone. And presently, we've got to go back to the 1600s to know when our law first began in our five. It first began for England, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, Africa, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Canada. And what everybody's getting confused about is they think that the Americans are the same as us when you're talking about chalk and cheese, black and white. They are not under common law. They're not live rights. We're under the live rights. They're not under common law. They're under federal law. And you have to remember that in the early 1800s, they went to war with England, and they threw England out, and they threw the common law out. Well, the same thing happened in England in 1688. When they brought in the 1688, the people said, the king said, I'm going to hand governance to the people, but the king gave them the 1688, and he said, you can only govern according to this contract. Now, if you go and look in the 1688, you will see there that it's called corporation, and it's called an annexed corporation. And you have to think about it, because we have a huge country, and the idea that our country wouldn't be run as a corporation is ludicrous. So we were made a corporation at that time, but who were the directors of that corporation? We are. We're the directors. And since we are the directors of the corporation, whenever the government, every single time that the government makes a law, they aren't responsible for it. Did you know that? You are. When they make a law and they say, if this thing doesn't happen for this person is going to get compensation. The ones that pay the compensation isn't those government officials. We pay it. So it stands to reason that when you own a corporation that is called a country, when you own that corporation, that it has to have a set of rights that the people have to follow, and it has to have the rules of the corporation. And the rules of our country, each of our country's corporation, is in the 1688 Bill of Rights, because it tells us in there the rules that they have to follow in order to govern us. They have to protect our Protestant laws. They're not allowed to have foreigners govern over us. They have to rule us in unity, peace, tranquility, and safety. They are not allowed to govern us by division. They are not allowed to, they have to protect, they're not allowed forfeiture of person without conviction. They're not allowed to take our lands. It's got many things that they have to do in government, and you'll see that in the cabinet manual. So that goes in the cabinet manual, which tells them what they have to do, and they have buried it. All right. Now, along with that 1688 Bill of Rights also comes, this is its partner, called the Declaratory Judgment Acts. And this Declaratory Judgment Acts tells them, if you go to section 3, it says where any person has done or desires to do any act, validity, legality, or effect of which depends on the construction of validity of any statute or any regulation made by the Governor General or under any statutory authority or any bylaw or any local authority or any deed, any will, any document, any agreement made or evidenced by writing or any memorandum or any articles of association or any company or any body corporate or any instrument prescribing the powers of the company, or where any person claims to have acquired any right under any such statute, regulation, bylaw, deed, will, document of title, memorandum, article, instrument, manner interested in the construction. So whenever you see a law like Section 5 KII that binds you to all of these United Nations laws, you are entitled to go down to the court and file an application as a layman common law person and say, I have a question about the construction of this law and how it applies to me. And then this is where your common law comes to power. You're allowed to enter the court. Now it says such person, which is us, may apply to the High Court for an originating summons or a declaratory order determining any question as to the construction or validity of such statute, regulation, bylaw, will, agreement, memorandum, article, instrument. So when they're trying to remove our 1688 Bill of Rights called the counter reformation, which is what they've divided up our countries. They've got all the native tribes. They've put them all into the United Nations law. They're ruling us by division. They're ruling us in chaos, in fear. They're writing laws, binding us to hundreds of international laws that we don't know what they are. And when people are affected by those laws, they can come and prosecute us. And we have to pay with our money. So that's why we're allowed to go, because the country is a corporation and the corporation belongs to us. And we are the directors. And we are supposed to keep an eye on the laws that they're making to make sure, well, actually, we hire a Crown Council and we hire a Governor General and we hire a High Court. And they're supposed to check on those laws. And when a government comes to power and they write laws that are repugnant to our indubitable rights, when they do that, when the government does that, our directors that we hire are supposed to step in and say something. But that doesn't let us off the hook. When you own a company, you've got to keep an eye on it. You can't just give your company to anybody to take care of. You're responsible, and we haven't been responsible for hundreds of years. We've just said, you do it and we'll just trust you. And it's come back to bite us in the ass. So now what we're seeing is that those governor generals and those queens and those crown councils are not doing their job. So we take our 1900 Act, we find a law that we think is repugnant, and we go to the court. And so this is, now it says here, such person may go to the court and get a summons, and we can summons the Prime Minister to the court, which is what I did. I went to the court and I summoned Jacinda Ardern to the court and others as well, because I was unhappy about this law. And I was also unhappy about the 1990 New Zealand Bill of Rights. Section 27 was because under Section 27 of the New Zealand Bill of Rights, if you've been affected by any law, you can go to the court and you can file a litigation against the government or against the agency, and then they have to pay you money to make up for what was done. But when you're going to the court to question a point of law that they have made you the obligator to, then under the 1990, you have to have a lawyer because it's litigation to get money and they're not pure in heart. But when we're going to law to claim our Protestant law, our Protestant protections, our right to have arms, our right to not be ruled arbitrarily, our right to not be obliged to international laws that we don't want to be obliged to, all of those things, they're not monetary. You have to be pure in heart, that you have a love for your country, you have a love for your company, you have a love for your future generations, and you don't want them to be subjected to that kind of thing. So this 1990, yes, that's right, isn't it, Sharon? So this 1990, they get blocked by the Mannix law because under that corporation, they're seeking money. And so, but when I went to the court, they blocked me using the 1688 Bill of Rights that was talking about a point of law, and they used the Mannix law against me. And part of my lawsuit was I wanted them to make a clear distinction that the 1990 Bill of Rights and the United Nations rights and the human rights are ordinary laws, not constitutional laws, and they're not, our company is not bound by them. Our company can change them as we see fit if we don't like them. Whereas our indubitable right of the 1688, it can't be changed because that is firm. That's our company law, right? So what has happened?
And they charged you for it.
And they charged me for it. And according to this, what it says here is that the person may go to the court, any person, and you don't need a lawyer because it actually says down here, show have effect. The court can make a declaration for you and the whole country will be bound by it, including governments, governor generals, everybody will be bound by it. And summons to be subject to the rules of the court, removal of originating may be hang on, an appeal in a manner as which the fine of any. Just a minute, sorry. All right. So down here it says that when you have a question about a point of law, the jurisdiction hereby conferred upon the High Court to give or make any declaratory judgment or order shall not be excluded by the fact that the said court has no power to give relief, to which the judgment or order relates, or such matter independently of this act to be exclusively. So what they're saying is, if you have a questionatory order and they've been blocking the common law people for the last 20 years, even 30 years, they've been blocking them using the Mannix law over and over again because they've been telling you to use your 1990 Bill of Rights, or they've been telling you to use human rights, any rights, but not your 1688 indubitable rights, because the 1688 indubitable rights cannot be blocked, and they can't use the corporation to you on it. And we now are currently fighting that. So we've gone to the court, we're in the matrix fighting the Mannix law. Now I want to get onto this Lexis Nexis, and I have to go back in time and I have to tell you a bit of history so that you know where did our law come from. Okay, so Lexis Nexis is very important. Now, Lexis Nexis is an American law company that came to power in what I want you to think about. Where did the chaos in our country begin? The chaos in our countries started beginning around about 1970, when all these common law groups started coming out telling you, don't go to the court. Don't go to the court for your common law. They kept telling people, and they have been wrong. They should never tell you not to go to the court, because you must go to the court when your rights are being abused. You must go to the court because you own the company. So I'll go down to the bottom here. I've just written this, so it's not completely written, and so I'll do my best to explain it to you. So Lexis Nexis, I'll just read it from what I've written and see if you can pick up on what I'm saying. Lexis Nexis is a new model of law that was only published in 1973, and it has never paid any due diligence to the common law origins and the corporate contracts of the 1688 Bill of Rights that are owed to the person in England, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, Australia, New Zealand. And especially there were certain contracts that were made in New Zealand, which are also held by the New Zealand Maori, and also held by the people, the Germanic people of the St. Pauli, and the 1908 declaratory judgment. Nexis Lexis is a New York-based law subsidiary with case law. They've had articles, tools to provide legal assistance worldwide. It is a worldwide legal entity, and it began in the 1970s. Now, you have to listen carefully, but you can only just need to go and Google Lexis Nexis, and you can read all about it, and you'll find out what's wrong in our country. But I've summarized it. I got it from Wikipedia. I've summarized it, but you can go and look up Lexis Nexis. Its origins began in 1968 by a company called Mead Corporation, and it was joined with two attorneys of law called Wilson and Rubin. Originally, it was called Lexis, and Lex in Latin meant law, and is the ISIS and Islamic law. I reckon it's the Islamists that are in on this. But anyway, it's got is, and which was the meaning of information service. By 1976, included in case law, it was only, by 1976, it only had 6 states in America that have accepted it. Not every state in America has accepted it, and China has recently thrown them out because of the chaos that they've caused. All right? So they're in New Zealand. Lexis Nexis was incorporated into New Zealand law in 2020. It's been incorporated into England, all of our countries, and this is a corporate law that they are functioning under, where you have no power because we're using your 1688 Bill of Rights. But our 1688 Bill of Rights is still in the Cabinet Manual, and when you go to the court, don't touch any other laws. You cannot touch any other law. You can only you get your 1688, you find the law that's repugnant, and there are many. You find the law that's repugnant, and you take that to the court, all right? And you won't get any monetary gain. But if you get your declaration and then you want to get monetary gain, then you need a solicitor. And then you go and do a class action, and that's where you get your money for all your troubles. But because they work for us. And when they write a law that doesn't make sense, they have failed us. And when you go to the court, the High Court judge, you already pay him to be the lawyer of your company. You already pay the Crown Law, and you already pay the Governor General. And if the Governor General is allowing, or the Crown Law are allowing laws to function in your country, even if it hasn't ascended, which they are, even if it hasn't ascended, you can take them to go to the court and ask them to look at, and they are your lawyers because you have paid them to be your lawyers already.
Yes.
So you don't have to pay a lawyer. So,
and we shouldn't, as laymen, we shouldn't have to go to court now and do this.
no,
The amount of work you've done is
that,
yeah.
Well, it
that's
makes you wonder what you're paying for. If you're paying all these people to do all of this, and we're, as you say, we're supposed to be watching over that, then we're able to go into court and say, hey, we pay you to look after our interests.
our company, which is the country, and you're not doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And we shouldn't have to pay for that.
It's evil.
We should be
We're
able
also
to.
paying. We're also paying for all those cases, and there are thousands of them going into our courts now using the 1990, the litigation, the fees, like just for us to front up for an appeal court is $1,100 just to file the bloody thing.
Yeah.
So now we're paying all those cases that are coming through, all those solicitors with their cases for the mandates and all that. They know, they must know they're going to lose. And it's not about that. They're doing this for money.
Yeah.
Yes.
For money.
They're not interested in you. They're not interested in you or the country. They're interested in, I'm going to get some money out of this. And they never can pass it because they can't get past the Mannix law.
And you can't tell me they don't know they can't
Yeah.
get past it.
You can't tell me they don't know.
They know that they can't get past this Mannix law because how old is that bloody thing?
And they still get paid.
And they still get paid.
Yes,
Exactly.
they get paid by the state because they work for companies like human rights advocates and what's some other names of companies that they have? Immigration advocates and
Thieves would be a good name.
Eh?
Yeah.
Thieves.
Because they all know.
They know that when they get that case to the court, that they're not going to get it passed because of the Mannix law of the corporation. They also know that if they use the 1688 Bill of Rights to go to the court, that it would pass the Mannix law and they would most likely win their case, but they also know that they cannot get paid on that.
Yep.
They can't get paid.
And they're uplifting, and there's a two-way thing here. They're uplifting the 1990, which is what they want, because they want to kick the 1688 out.
Yes.
They're uplifting that, and they're making money. A whole bunch of people are making money on this, and they know that those in the know, and you can't tell me solicitors do not know that they're going to lose.
Charlatans, Maxine. Charlatans is what they are. They are charlatans. And it's just awful what they're doing to the people, giving the people hope, knowing that they can't. Yeah, it's horrible.
I could think of another C word to charlatans, but I won't.
Cunctators is what they are. Aren't they?
Language.
I'm on video, YouTube, stop it. Now, so I'll get back to this Lexis because it's worse than that. When I explain it to you, right? It's even going to be worse than that when you hear what I've got to tell you. So the Lexis, it was originally called Lexis, which came from the Latin, and also information service. So that's, now you've got law and then you've got all the computer. So the Nexus, it started out called a Nexus service in 1980. This is all a recent law. In 1980, excuse me, I'm burping because of my Pepsi, which it provided a database for, sorry. So that is the Lexis. So the Lex came from law, and then the is came from the information service, right? That put together. And then there was another company that was created called Nexus. and Nexus was for all the media. You know how you're all talking about the news doesn't seem to be normal. We seem to be getting a lot of news from America that we didn't get it before. Is the Queen, KTW says, is the Queen still alive? KTW, don't worry if the Queen is still alive, because we own the country, we own the corporation, and the Queen's law still stands presently.
Yeah.
As long as we hold the Queen's law, in that Queen's law of the 1688, it tells us what to do if either the Queen is corrupt, or if we want to remove the Queen, or if the Queen is gone, it tells us what we need to do. But if we don't have that, then we don't have any power. So it is irrelevant, but I think she's still alive. I think you'd know all about it if she wasn't. I really do. The Thai king, everyone was saying that the Thai king was passed when he wasn't, and when he did pass, everybody knew about it. Don't worry about that too much. I think you don't need to worry, because you don't realise that the Queen is a shelf. The Queen is a shelf that our all of us just sit on for our corporation. The country is a corporation. We own it. And our 1688 are the directives of that corporation. And they sit on the Queen, who is a shelf. Where's Sharon gone?
I don't know.
Is she coming back? Where'd you go, Sharon? Okay.
Probably.
All right. Hopefully she'll come back. All right, then. So let's worry about this Nexus Lexis. So that if you notice that the newspaper articles and everything have been bringing back this strange news and everything, and people have been wondering, well, that's Nexus, and it's an American company, and what they do is they go all around the world and they put all of the news from all over the world into their data system, and they've just come up with a 50% partnership that they were talking about with Canada, that if Canadians want to do a YouTube, they have to do 50% of information. Is that right that you've been telling me, Maxine?
I know the C11 bell, but I don't know how it. I know that the C11 bell, my son was saying that over there it's going to mean that any, say, streamer or anything, they've got a certain percentage of they stream has got to be about the Canadian, what they're told to put up.
What they're told. Well, that's Nexus. And why do they want them to do that? That's going to mean, because you know when there's music things on YouTube, and every time you post that and you sing a song with it or you do something of it, it comes up as a copyright, and then the copyright of your video goes to that music singer. So if you've attached any Nexus articles to your YouTube, the copyright of your YouTube will go to the Nexus company. YouTube will go to the Nexus company. You've got a double thing on, Sharon. Yeah, Sharon's fixing it. She's coming twice. You've got a double thing on. Is it off now? Put your sound on.
I lost connection and then I redialed.
Yeah, oh, it's okay now. It's good now.
The YouTube's been playing up actually, which is
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It has. Right. So anyway, so whenever you do any of you, so you're going to be wondering why. Okay, we'll talk about the Queen, and I'll get to the end of this, KTW, and then I'll answer your questions about the Queen. And so you'll be wondering why the governments have started giving huge amounts of money to media and all of that to create. Well, all those media are doing that thing. Whenever they want to write a story, they go to the Nexus database. They get told what they have to put in their story. They get told what they have to refer to, and then a certain amount of copyright is going to the Nexus database, and that's where all this money is going. And there's people that are invested in this. It'll be the usual names that are invested in this Nexus company. Yeah, it'll be the usual names. So don't you worry about that. So now you've got Lexis, which is law and information, it's just information service. And then you've got Nexis, which is all the media articles. And then they put them together called Lexis Nexis. And that's who's in our countries at the moment. Yes, this is the one world government. Wait till I get, and then I'm going to tell you about it. Wait, KTW, because you're going to be surprised. Well, I'll tell you, she's all excited, but you have to wait, KTW, because I've got something I want to tell you. Now, the Med Corporation sold the Lexis Nexis system to a company called Reed Elsevier for $1.5 billion. And then Reed Elsevier, under the name of Lexis Nexis, they went and acquired 52 legal titles, including lawyers' editions owned by the Thompson Corporation. Between 1997 and the present day, Lexis Nexis acquired many, many database companies around the world, which were called the Matrix. Okay, I'll tell you that in a minute. Answer all questions in a minute. They're called the Matrix. Lexis Nexis is called Risk Solutions, Pratt and Sons, Health Market Service, Behavior Sec, and others. So these people, they bought up all the law books in the world. They bought up all the companies that do the legal papers, the constitutions. They're all done by companies, and they've been done by companies for hundreds of years. The king used to do it, and then the king passed it to Parliament. But when Parliament did it, they had a company that did all their crown law and all the common laws for them, right? And then, but Lexis Nexis has gone and brought up all those companies. So they own the entire market. So any country that wants to have laws, they've got to pay the Lexis company, which is writing all their laws based on American law and not common law that we're all under. So that's why we're in trouble. Now, Lexis then went on to purchase every single book in every single library in every single one of our countries, Australia, England, New Zealand, Ireland. They've bought all the books and all the libraries, and they've seen our history. They've started removing our documents, our books. They've started pulling down our statues. They've started putting in, everyone's talking because we're saying we don't understand these laws. These laws, these histories. They've brought in a whole bunch of history, and we're all saying the history's not right. It's not matching what we remember, and it's not matching all us old ones. Isn't that right, Sharon? Yeah, Sharon's the oracle.
And they're shutting down. They're shutting down access to history until certain years.
Yes, they're shutting down history for 30 years, 100 years. And not only that, many so-called biblical texts have suddenly been appearing. And some of them have been saying that they've changed what happened with Jesus. They've said that the Christians were together with the Jews and that we were the best buddies. And they're saying they've brought up all these new writings that have suddenly been discovered, and they're putting all this through the universities. Our New Zealand Maori, they've changed all their history of their family names, the wars that went on, and all of that's just been changed, and they're calling us all colonists, and they're saying all these things. And I went back and researched, and half of it's just not true. And so they've got the three markets. They've got the law market, they've got all the libraries, they've got all the newspapers, all the media, and it's all in this one company that was started in 1970. They own everything. Now, I want to tell you about how our law started, our common law with the 1688 Bill of Rights, and where did our common law come from? I would say it BlackRock. KTW says, is it that BlackRock? KTW, I would say that BlackRock is heavily, heavily involved. So what happens when? So what I'm thinking that they're doing is that they're creating problems in our society, so that the lawyers are going to the court with hundreds and hundreds of cases. They don't care if the case is against the government. They don't care if the case is against the people. I think they're deliberately writing repugnant laws. They are deliberately writing laws that make no sense, because when it goes to the court, they get paid billions of dollars because really,
whether they will or not.
She's selling off. Because we have noticed that with this COVID response, they would make a law, the lawyer was going to the court, and halfway through the court case, Parliament would just change the law that they did. And then the people would come out with the court case, and the court case was useless to them because Parliament had already changed the law, but the Parliament just changed it by one word, and the people had to go back to the court again.
Start again.
With the start
And
again.
all the
Start
sightings
again.
in those cases, all the sightings are these royalties.
Every single time that those cases are cited, and they are citing them again and again and again, the exact same cases, again and again and again. We found them. Every time they get cited, Lexis Nexis law company gets paid. So they're deliberately doing it.
So who's paying? Obviously these supposed solicitors that keep putting these cases through court, getting people's hopes up. Who are paying them? They can't be doing this for nothing.
No,
we are.
No, we are. Yes, Sharon's got it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware of that, but what I'm saying is that this is the whole. This is it. They're going to be. They'll be richer than the musicians' royalties.
Exactly.
And we're letting them. We're letting them.
This is in the only place, the only countries that they're in is England, Ireland, Scotland, Australia, and New Zealand, and recently booted out of China. South Africa, they're only in our countries, not even in America. And we pay because we own New Zealand, and our governments are using it, and they're writing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laws, and they're deliberately writing laws that cause us to go to the court to make cases, and they get paid.
And what you're saying is, with the checks and balances, it's our High Court, our the GG, Governor General, and the Crown Law that are meant to be keeping check on that.
And the place where Crown Law has no power is in human rights, international law, all those laws that are coming out of the UN, Indigenous rights, Universal Declaration of Rights, the International Covenant on Rights. All of those laws are written outside. Oh, KTW is gone, and I was going to answer her questions. All of those laws are written outside, and the Governor General doesn't, and they're not ascended. They don't ascend, but they've been attached onto certain laws of ours that have ascended. So what they've done is they take our law that's ascended. So our 1990 Bill of Rights ascended in 1990, and they attached on the human rights 3 years later they can attach it in the bills where they can add one law to a law that was already ascended. They can add one thing onto it and it doesn't have to ascend, and that's how they did it. And they've done this to all our laws in New Zealand. First of all, they wrote a law that was suitable to our 1688 Bill of Rights and protected all of us as a people in our company of our country. But then 3 years later, they attached on a United Nations law that was never written by us, never ascended to the Crown, and never, and all of those things that they have attached them have monetary gain for the people. And we are the ones that have to pay it. And all of that, those laws are done through Lexis Nexis. And every time they're quoted, our country, has to pay Lexis Nexis. It's a huge scam. It's huge.
It's a scam.
It's a scam.
But they all know. This is the thing. You can't tell me all these solicitors and all these human rights actors.
Yeah.
So, and who are those human rights actors? All those ones that have left their, what you said, they left their
When I went and looked at their cases, one of the things that I had noticed is that almost all of them that were doing cases, I won't mention names, but if you go and look at the recent cases, they all previously held law degrees, and they had let their license. Yes, they all did, Sharon. Yeah, and then, but they had let their license slip. They couldn't get past the Mannix law because they had let their license slip. And why had they let their license slip? Because they only functioned in human rights law. And since they were only functioning in human rights law, they lost their rights to, because they were getting paid by this Lexis Nexis company. When they opened their advocate and they used human rights law, the New Zealand government was paying that advocate company and paying them on a salary. And then it was paying a royalty to the Lexis Nexis company. So these lawyers were getting more money doing that than they were working in the common law and the proper constitutional laws of our country. Yeah, they weren't getting paid. They weren't making any money as much.
So they're selling out our people and our country.
So they're selling out. Yes, that's what they're doing. They're selling out our people, selling out our country for a buck. And then for a buck. More than a buck. It's a lot of bucks.
There'll be more than a fucking buck.
There'll be more than a fucking buck. There'll be a lot of bucks. Fucking, I've done a lot of bucks in my lifetime, but I bet they buck more than me. They're bucking all day. Buck. Fucking bucking ducks is what they are.
Obviously, many of them think that it's worth it to sell your country out to get bucks.
Well, it is. If you listen to it, it is worth it. We're all in the wrong place.
Well,
no,
we're pure in heart. That's why we're in. I would never sell out my children, my grandchildren. Fuck off. But I would want my grandchildren, my future children, because you want them safe.
No amount of money is worth selling out your future generation in the country that you're born in.
Yeah, the country that you're born in.
They need to leave with Lexis Nexis.
They need to leave with Lexis Nexis. It's never ascended. And Lexis Nexis is not paid homage. Now, I've got to go on to tell you the history of this. We've got to go back in time. KTW is back. The video service the other day. So where did our law begin? Our law began in the UK in Lexis was originally company found. Our law began in 1818. 1818 is when there was a split, when the church didn't agree that the people could govern themselves. The churches thought, some religions thought, Jehovah's Witness, Mormons, Quakers, so many of the Jewish religions, Islamic religions, they thought that the people should never be allowed to govern themselves. And so that's when there was this big split. And then those people went out into the countries of New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and they went to America. Now, America had a war, and America threw Britain out because they didn't want to be bound by this 1908 declaratory judgment. They didn't want the people to own the country as their own corporation. They still thought that they themselves should own the country and that they should have it all and we should have no power. That's what they thought. They threw Britain out, but some of their states kept, some American states are Commonwealth states and some of them are not. And it would be interesting to see if the first 6 states in America that picked up the Lexis Nexis were Commonwealth states. It would be very interesting to know which were the first states that took the Lexis Nexis law. So if anybody knows about that, let me know. But our law then began in 1818 by a man called Henry Butterworth. Now, Henry Butterworth was a pupil at the King Henry VIII School in Coventry. And Henry VIII was the one that gave us the King James Bible and the 1688 Bill of Rights. And I think he did a lot of stuff like that. And so then he built a school that taught all about the common law and all of those kinds of things. And then this man here, Henry Butterworth, went to that school. After leaving the Coventry, Henry worked for his uncle Joseph Butterworth. Joseph, as in possibly Joseph, the ancestor of Joseph Smith. Okay. Think Joseph Smith. Then you'll know all about Joseph Butterworth. Now, they were great booksellers on the Fleet Street. In 1818, however, they had a disagreement between them as to the terms of the partnership. So Henry, who must have been very extremely good in law, at that time, all books and everything were written in the booksellers. There were no computers, obviously, and it was all done by printing presses, and then it went to the libraries, and that's where you went to get your information pre-computer days. And so Henry must have been the one that was writing all the law books, and then probably this guy Joseph wasn't giving him his fair share, his fair rights. So he turned around and said, I'm going to set up my own company. And he left and he went to a place called Middle Temple Gate. So he became the gatekeeper of the 1688 Bill of Rights and the common law. And where it became known, he became well known, called the Queen's Law bookseller. We have always been governed under the Queen's law. And why do we want to be governed under the Queen's law? It's got nothing to do with the Queen. It really doesn't. It's because she said, this country is yours, this corporation is yours, and this here is the rules that we, the Queen, the Parliament, the King, the courts, this is the rules that we have to follow if we want to be in charge of your corporation. And if we don't follow these rules, you can come to the court with your Declaratory Judgment Act and you can throw us out on our ear.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about, people. That's why she's there. She ain't there to look pretty.
Yeah.
So that's why we have the Queen's law. Now, this is not the same in America. In America, they have federal law and everybody does. They've all got constitutions as well, but theirs are very different to ours. Theirs has got a lot of stuff that ours, it's quite crappy, really, to be honest. It's got no free speech for a start. It's got no, what they say in America is you've got the right, they cannot disarm you of your guns. But ours says no disarming of the Protestants. What they mean is they can't disarm us in our law, in our right to go to the court and throw parliamentarians, governor generals, even queens, throw them out on their ear. They don't have that power in America, but we do. in our countries of common law. We have that power. You see?
Yep.
So, so Butterworth, Henry started up that in Fleet Street. It became known as the Queen's Law Bookseller. Butterworth, now here's where you have to listen. Butterworth was acquired by an international publishing corporation in 1965. Lexis Nexis began in 1968. So 1965, an international publishing corporation, which is Nexis, not Lexis, Nexis, purchased Butterworth's Queen's Law Bookseller. So they were no longer writing the laws for our countries. They stopped, probably because we weren't paying them enough, to be honest. That's probably why. And International Publishing Company then became vulnerable, and that became acquired by the Reed Group, which the Reed Group was the beginnings of the Lexis. All right. And then in 1970, Heinemann merged together with Butterworth's in the Science and Health. And then so that's why every single one of those health documents, every single one of those health agencies that they're setting up, all pay royalties to Lexis Nexis. All of them. So that's owned by them as well. So they own the health, they own all the libraries and the history, they own all the law, they just own everything. They've bought it all up. And so then it's a company owned by Reed. So then those publications, so they got all purchased by the Lexis Nexis and the Mead Corporation of 1968. The publications they're called Relix in UK, RELX in the UK, but around in our other countries called Lexis Nexis. And the Butterworth trademarks, including publications of the Holsbury Law. You'll see them using Holsbury Law a lot. All these common law people that have come out and they keep saying to you, Holsbury Law, first in time, best in law, first in time, best in law. Every time they use it in the court, the Lexis Nexis gets a royalty. So, and all England law reports. What they did is every single case in every single one of our countries was brought up by them. And whenever our judges now want to decide on any case, they have to cite laws from that country, from Lexis Nexis. And every single site, every time they cite a law that they're using, a dividend goes paid from our government to Lexis Nexis. That we just recently saw a ruling come out over some COVID health response. They went to the court, and the court come back with a paper, a report, a ruling that was 430 pages long. It was just huge, and it had international laws, American laws.
Flying Kiwis, eh?
Oh, yeah, I think so. And it had Australian laws, English laws, American laws, African laws, Canadian laws, all through this document. And then you get to the end of the document, and they said, anyway, this whole thing is irrelevant because they changed the law 2 weeks ago, and it's not relevant anymore. And the government, yes, and the government paid them for all of that. So this is the, and it doesn't say that. They reckon that it says first in time, best in law, but it doesn't actually say that. It actually says, I'll see if I can find it here in my history. It doesn't actually say that. It says first in time, best in right, is what it says.
Mhm.
It doesn't say first in time, best in law. It doesn't actually say that. It says, I'll make sure
But
I get it.
if you say it enough, people believe it.
If you say it enough, people
Say it
will
often
believe it.
enough.
But what it actually says, now this is important that you have this. It's not from the Holsbury law. The Holsbury law is different. Oh, I hope I can find it for you. Oh dear, I hate it when I get in here and I need to find something for you and then I can't. Here. The general rule, when they're talking about property, a lien on property. So all our countries are corporations and all our countries are companies owned by us. We own the company, okay? So, and as the company, we are the directors of the company. And then they all work for us because we pay for them. And then the 1688 Bill of Rights, together with the 1908 Declaratory Judgment Act, says that if we have a problem with a point of law, we can go to the court and ask them. And then the High Court is our lawyer. They're our lawyer. And then it says here, the rule is known as the first in time, first in right. And they're saying the Holsbury law says first in time, best in law. But the actual thing in regards to property is first in time, first in right. And then we have the first in time, first in right before the Lexis Nexis. We have the power over them. Yes. Now, it does. And then they brought out a law in 2016 that said, and this was called a declaratory judgment to be used with the 1990 Bill of Rights. And it actually says in there, this only applies to all people and all laws after 1973. And Lexis Nexis began its actual beginnings when it was fully formed as Nexis Lexis was 1973. So in 1973, a pretended title of the Crown Queen's Law came to power in our 5 countries. And they, in my opinion, they are, I cannot openly because they are lawyers and they'll take me to court. So in my conspiracy theory, it's just only a conspiracy theory. It seems like they're deliberately creating situations in our countries so that we are constantly in a constant state of fear and a constant state of upheaval and constantly going to the courts using their laws that they're getting billions and billions of dollars in royalties.
But now that we know, Daddy's home.
Daddy's home. Yeah.
Hello,
Daddy's come home.
Yeah. Daddy's home. We're going to be, I mean, they can have their Lexis law. They can have it if they want. Nothing wrong with Lexis
The sun doesn't shine.
But they're not going to be taking away our 1688 Bill of Rights from us, and they're not going to use this Mannix law to stop us from getting into the court using our indubitable rights, which is free. Nobody pays
and they're
for
not
it.
going to charge you.
They cannot charge you not 1 penny. They can't charge you on it, but they can charge you. Because I think that our 1688 Bill of Rights is kind of like a patented thing in the common law. Not every country is a common law country. There are only a few, and we are one of them. Our countries, the Commonwealth countries, are all in the common law, but America is not. And so I think that 1688 together with our 1908. And in New Zealand, we had a thing called, now I bet Australia's got it too. In New Zealand, we had a thing called the 1865 Native Rights. And it said that New Zealand, all of New Zealand would be governed by the Queen's law. But I'm going to have to go to the judge and I'm going to have to go to the court and ask the court, what does that mean? Because the Queen's law was bought out by Lexis Nexis. They bought it. They bought the Butterworth Company, and so there's no more Queen's law. Is there? Queen's law no longer exists.
The
But the
1688.
1688 is still a signed contract between Maori and the Queen.
And not just that, that was before Henry Butterworth came along, so he didn't own that.
No, it was owned by the King, and that's why you'll see Alfred and John talking about the King's law.
Yeah.
You'll see we've got these two
my God,
people,
you're right.
John Wanoa and Alfred Mitchell, and they've been going on about the King's law because they said that I'm thinking we've got something going here. I think we're going to be able to. The Queen Victoria took over in 1837. Previous to that, they were under the King's law, and they keep going on about Henry VIII.
Yeah.
Henry VIII was the one that started the College of teaching about the common law in the 1688 and our right to govern ourselves, and that we were the owners of the corporation, and that we can take them to court and throw them out if they write laws that make us responsible for things that we don't want to be responsible for. Because they've said we have to be responsible for all the refugees in the entire world. That's what they've said. They've said that when a refugee comes to our house, comes to our country, we have to provide them with a house. We have to provide them with $100,000 settlement money. We have to provide them with a job. We have to provide their families with all sorts of things. And they've signed us up to a law that we might not want to pay for that. So we are entitled to question that by our power. And that was given by Henry VIII. And so Queen Victoria came in. So I think this might be where John and Alfred and all these other common lawyers are saying is that when Lexis Nexis brought up all the law in all of our common law countries, all our laws became a corporation. And so when you tried to get in, they said a corporation is not a person. And when a corporation is not a person, it must be represented by a solicitor. And so they said, since all the law is a corporation and your government is a corporation and you're not a solicitor, you're not allowed to use your common law to go to the court. They block you with the Mannix rule. But actually, that is not the fact. In an actual fact, if you look in your 1908, it's got an exception. The exception is that if you only have to have a question about the validity of construction of one of their laws. That's it. And they have to let you into the court without a lawyer. And so we're going to be battling the Mannix law. And we're going to be trying to get our common law back. So that's the fight that we're going back on the appeal with.
I'm assuming that when you take this back into court on the appeal, then it'll be at the discretion of the judge, possibly.
For what?
The decision, whether he'll give that declaration.
No, because it says here that this can be taken all the way to England somewhere.
Oh my goodness.
It says
So we
no. I've got it somewhere.
So we're hoping that there are
people
there.
I have found the corporation that was set up in our countries.
You're kidding.
No, I found it. Yeah, I found it. The official documents of the South Island, the charter of the New Zealand company, and all the countries will have this, and the supplementary charter that was done in 1843, and the charter of our companies. Each of our countries have these, even England has them. England has when the king handed it over, they made, because if you go and look in the 1688 Bill of Rights, it says that it's a corporation. And when they made the corporation in England, they wrote a charter for the people to manage their company, because they handed.
You found it.
Yes, the king handed the country over to the people, and he said, it's your country, it belongs to you, and you are the owners of this company. And that's why you became a corporation. But they couldn't just make you a corporation. They gave you a set of rules that your corporation is to be governed by. And then in 1843, when the St. Paul's ship came to New Zealand and they set up the Union Bank of New Zealand, they added an extra charter to the original charter of the South Island.
Wow.
Yeah, and the names of the people on that St. Paul's ship are specific to this charter. And it says in here, and then the 1688 is connected to this because they all came together. When they sent us out to these countries, they didn't send us naked in the jungle. They sent us with many, many strict protections that we were to be governed for. And it says in here that we are to be governed by this in perpetuity. In perpetuity, which means they can never, ever take this away from us, that we own this country, we own the country, we own the government, we own the police, we own the courts, we own the Governor General, it all belongs to us.
Armies.
Yeah, armies. And when
All
they
the
make
military.
laws that
That's
are...
your whakapapa.
Yeah, that's our whakapapa.
It is
It's
That's
ours.
your whakapapa too.
Yeah, it's
That's-
mine.
that's
It's
yours.
mine. It's yours. It's ours.
Oh my God. I wonder who knew about that.
Well, but they all know about it, but they've not been. But this one's for the South Island, and then they've got them for the North. But England will have it. Scotland's got it. You've all got it. So you've got all these documents that you've got here. You've got your 1908 that says you can go to court. You've got
Yep.
your constitutions, your corporation. You're incorporated in here. You're incorporated in perpetuity. That means your country will always belong to you and your descendants. All right? And what they've done to our countries, Nexis, Lexis, is they have imported thousands, even millions, in New Zealand, 2 million immigrants into the country that are not part of these laws. And that's why they said from 1973. So anyone that's living pre-1973 can go and fix this now in the court to stop them doing what they're doing. But when we all die, the new generations aren't going to have it if we don't get in there and get it done for them.
Yep.
Ah,
Yes.
fucking beauty.
So that's what we've got to do for them. We're doing this for them. And so...
Oh,
Yep.
so that's probably why half these Māoris that are turning up on my whakapapa turned
Yeah.
up on my whakapapa.
Yeah.
so
What do you think of that, Maxine?
I knew it.
So
Out
there's...
of the night.
Looking,
Yeah,
I've been watching my whakapapa grow something wicked. If you think it just makes me so angry.
all the populations have increased. They've been saying that the native populations have increased rapidly and hugely, and it's because they've been bringing in immigrants from America and other countries and getting them all to make families with the natives so that they can literally breed these laws out of them. That's the
Not
whole.
just that though,
Yeah.
people have been taking
Oh, yes.
whakapapa and claiming it as their own.
They-
That's what they've been doing.
Yes, people have been, I'll just announce this, people have been taking our names and they've been claiming our ancestries when they don't own those ancestries. When we question them, they don't know what we're talking about. Because we know when I sit in the matrix with Morpheus and the Oracle, and we talk together, we know what our histories are. We always find connections. So your great-great-great-grandfather was here, and oh, my great-great-grandfather was there too. And we know quite quickly how we make those connections.
We've got the stories.
Because we've got the
Because we have the
stories.
korero.
Yeah, but the
That's
stories
why.
from our parents.
I'll tell you how that happens for anybody out there. If you have a marae in your township and you think tourists are going there for tourism and want to have a look at what Māori's maraes and Māori culture is all about, they also go to your cemetery. Why would they go and visit your cemetery? To get your names.
They've been going and stealing names from the gravestones, and we have evidence of that too, by the way, actually. And not only that, they're so they're changing our history. They're doing all these things. So there's a whole lot going on. But this Lexis law that they've been put into our country, it's a huge money making empire. We won't go into too much of those other things, but it is a huge money making empire. And so this is what we have to look at. It's like it's not a bad thing to have Nexus Lexis, but how do you control them? And are they functioning in America? And if they're not functioning in America, then why aren't they functioning in America? And I think, and China's just kicked them out. I think we need to take a serious look at what's going on in our country. We always all have to get involved here, don't we?
Well, it makes it like we were talking, like we're trying to get this appeal together, but we know that we can't go to a solicitor because you just don't know who to trust. It sounds like they're all on the payroll, and then those other ones that are taking those other non-solicitors that dropped off, that are taking these cases to court, like the grounded Kiwi, there are a lot of us sitting there hoping upon hope because we've been mandated out of our jobs. We really believed, oh my God, they're going to do it. Then they came out and said it won, but it didn't.
No, it didn't win.
It made no difference to our jobs. It did not win.
It did not.
Yeah,
win.
They're fooling.
None of them
So
have won.
they're fooling the people on purpose, and part of our people that should be with us and say they are with us are going along. They're just actors, and they're taking.
And they set up these agencies, like in New Zealand, they set up these agencies. They set up these agencies to help so-called disadvantaged people. Like they've got the suicide agency, and then they've got the hungry people agency, and then they've got the beaten children's agency, and then the prisoners agency. Well, all of those agencies are run by Nexus Lexis. And so Nexus Lexis got paid, so they've been creating chaos amongst the people, creating abuse, creating all of that, so that they've got people to go to these agencies that are making money through all of the laws that they're using at these agencies. Because in order to set those agencies up, they have to have human rights and United Nations laws as part of it's all of their thing. Well, that all goes to Nexus Lexis. And then now they've come up with a new thing where those agencies themselves are doing things to hurt the people that they're supposed to be helping. So they're getting a
Yeah.
double whammy, because then those people are taking those agencies to court. So then they get paid again, because they're getting paid because giving all the laws and everything to the agency to help the people, and then they make sure that the agency does wrong to the people. And when they do that, then the people go to the court and prosecute the agency, and then the Nexis Lexis gets paid from both ends. Do you know what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
Obviously,
So-
and then they drop down to the ones that are supposed the knights that are coming through to say, we're going to save you, and let's get together in groups, and let's go and let's do something. Those supposed knights must be getting must be getting something to do that, because there's a whole heap of knights out there at the moment going along
There's
out
a
in the
lot.
public.
Yeah. Well, previously we were all under the Queen's Law, and every time the Queen's Law was used, and every time the Queen's Law was quoted, the company that did that, the Butterworth Company, they got paid, and that's why England said that their best finance was in law, because that's how they made their money, doing the law for the 54 countries. The problem is that the law was so protective of us that we rarely, if ever, found it necessary to take any governments to court, because it was so strict on what the governments could do. And because we had this law here that says if they made any laws that caused us to be in any way penalized, so for example, that they make the Human Rights Act coming through, right? And then they say to that person, they made a law in there, and then that person went to the court and said that that law was breached. Then that person can go to court and get money, and the money that they get is paid for by the taxpayer, right? And so, but whereas with the Queen's Law, when they made a law that forced us to pay for something that we hadn't done anything wrong, all right, the Queen had to pay. The Queen's Law Office had to pay, because they had written a faulty law that caused us to pay for something that we didn't do. And so we could prosecute the Butterworth Company, because they had put our corporation into penalty because of their failure to check their law carefully. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
This is why our prisons are full.
Yes,
It is
it
right.
is.
This
Yeah.
has to be why
The
our
prisons got
are
full in the
And I can tell
1970s.
And I can tell you a fact. The solicitors, when a prisoner wants to ring a solicitor, they've got free reign at any time. It is a rule. Oh my fucking God.
Because every time they call
This
that
is why our
solicitor,
prisons are full.
every time they call that solicitor, he's being paid by Nexis Lexis. And every time Nexis Lexis owns all the lawyers, and every time Nexis Lexis has to pay them, they send a bill to our government. And so
And this is why Arthur Taylor cases. Oh my God.
that's why, and then the problem is that they said that they're a corporation. They don't give us any ability to prosecute them, because our 1908 can only prosecute Queen's Law, because Queen's Law is so strict, because Queen's Law is not permitted to make a law that makes us pay for something that we didn't do, because we're paying for all that, but we didn't do anything.
Yeah.
You know, he went and robbed the bank. He robbed the bank, and then, he got, I don't know. Well, he robbed the bank. No, somebody abused him. The state care, right? State care. State care abused the child, right? And they took the child illegally, right? State care took the child illegally, all right? And then, so then when the people go and prosecute the state who is under the Nexus Lexis, the government has to pay. We pay. We didn't do anything wrong, but we have to pay for that thing that happened to that child. And Nexus Lexis gets paid. But if they were under the Queen's law, they would have to be very careful not to do that, because they're not allowed to let our company get into penalty where we're paying for something that we didn't do.
Yep.
So they have created, see, now they're on the suicide thing where they're creating suicide in children. They're creating homosexuality in children. The reason why and all of those lawsuits are going to go through Connection is Unstable. Right, all those lawsuits are going to go through Nexus Lexis. All of them. Every time a government agency, messes up now, then even when they mess up to you, it's your taxes that pay the money that you get. But whereas under the Queen's law, they had to pay because they were at fault. We said, and that's why we had this 1908 where we could go any time that we want. And I'm just wondering now, I'm thinking about this actually some more. I'm thinking about, the human rights is not under the Queen's law. So is that why I can't take it to the court?
Yeah.
Just thinking, Sharon.
But it sounds like it because it's not the Queen's law.
Because it's not the Queen's law.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we can't.
But it would still be repugnant against the 1688 because of the laws that are in there. It goes against human race, our race.
It doesn't say here Queen's law. It says any law, any declaration, any memorandum, anything. It says it. So they must have known that at some point these bastards were going to be doing exactly what they're doing, and they wrote us these protections, and we've got to start using them. Yeah, so, no, it does. No, I still can use it.
Well, basically, it'd be nice to be like China and kick them out. And everything else that's been brought into our country on bullshit laws.
It is, because it's costing billions of dollars, but they weren't making enough. I suppose they weren't making enough money on the Queen's law. But this is where all our troubles began in around about 1973, when Lexis Nexis started entering New Zealand and set up. And it's in 1970 that also all the common law advocates came out of America and went to target our English-speaking countries, telling all of the people not to go to the court. You're a corporation now and you're not able to go to the court, and don't go, but we can actually go.
Renounce is that the same as renouncing your birth certificate?
Well, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking they reckon that you go into this corporation, which we do. They reckon that they make millions of dollars through this, which they do, but why are they aborting all our babies? Why would they want to abort the baby if they can get millions of dollars from the birth certificate? So I'm not really, I'm just wondering. They came to me and they said, leave the corporation. And I've got the document with my name on it of the St. Pauli Bank, the Union Bank that was set up, that is together with all of these documents of the South Island of 1843.
You got them.
I've got them. And
you and all those others that knew about it,
all-
but didn't say anything.
they all knew about it and they didn't freaking tell me. They told me to leave the corporation. And had I have left the corporation, you own the country. And when you
Yep.
leave the corporation, you no longer own the country. So why would you leave your corporation?
Exactly.
You should not. Why would you?
All those guys that have left the corporation.
They have
It's
left.
all for us.
That's all ours now because we didn't leave. Yeah, that's ours, not theirs. They left. They dumped New Zealand. They abandoned New Zealand. They said, because of course the country would be run as a corporation. We own the corporation. It says here we own it. And whenever they make a law that pisses us off, we can go there to the court for free and get them to fix it. Yeah. And
Yep.
and if you've left the corporation, you're not able to do that. You can't because you no longer own the country. You don't own it no more. And the only people that own the country.
A lot of people post off
I'm thinking that every single one of your tribes, I believe. See, here's mine. This is my one. I'm just going to show it out there. Here's mine. And it says that these people are the directors of the company. And here's the company of the South Island that was set up in 1843.
Oh, is that your first in time, first and right?
First in time, first in right. Yeah, first in time, first in right. That's in regards to property. And we were the first ones in the South Island that incorporated the South Island into our names. And it's got there 5 brothers, all Sixtuses. We've got here Fred Sixtus, Carl Sixtus, Christ Sixtus, Wilhelm Sixtus, and Gottfried Sixtus. So we're all the owners of the company. And I believe their great. Maxine did it for me, didn't you, Maxine? The great.
It's a 12-year-old.
And
12-year-old.
and then
Heinrich, I think.
yeah, and it says here that we are the owners of the company of the South Island in perpetuity, and it's signed off at the Queen's Palace. Yeah, it says here, signed off by Mr. Edmonds. Signed off by Mr. Edmonds at the Queen's Palace. Read the bottom bit. Yeah, it says there, it says, in witness whereof we have caused these our letters to be made patent, witness ourselves at our palace at Westminster this 4th day of August in the 7th year of our reign. Woohoo. Now, what I'm thinking, people, now don't be getting jealous of old Kate Floss here. I'm thinking that each one of your tribes owns one of these, each one. And then each one of you also will own one of these for your area under the letters patent. You'll all have them. You'll have to search. I can't do it for you. But we all own, there's only a few Pākehā. I know there was a few Scottish from the north, and then the Germanic people from the south. The Germans got that one in the south together. And so I'm not quite sure that John Wanoa, he's on the Queen's Court bench because I suppose he's thinking that we're no longer under the Queen's law and we're now under this corporation. He's trying to get us back under the King. But I'm not sure that we have to, I'm not saying that he's wrong. I'm saying that he's actually quite right. But I'm also saying that I've got something here too that I'm not quite sure what I've got here, but I reckon it's something very important for us all. So this is how we're going to all get our country back. So KTW asks, I'll answer your questions. KTW says, is the Queen still alive? It really doesn't matter. We love her. She's just a chef. We don't have the Queen. We've got Prince Charles. And when all of this came to be was in 1837 when the king died. And the Queen redid everything. But Butterworth's opened up with the Queen's Law in 1818 when there was still a king. So he must have been writing the laws ready for when 1837 Queen Victoria came to power. So previous you were on a king's law. But when they did the Queen's Law, the 1688 was carried over into that, but we all got new contracts. We got these contracts here that were set up in Australia, New Zealand, Scotland, Ireland. We all got contracts to be the owners of our country. And a few, but not many, a few Anglo people who became the protectors. We became the human shields to protect the natives against all these missionaries and evil religions from stealing their lands. They got given some special rights to some pieces of land as well, so that we could stay here and be together with you. We have to be together. We are gumboots and we must be together. We cannot be apart. We cannot be apart, I'm telling you. If we're apart, we cannot. So then she says, apparently the royal coat of arms have been removed from the Buckingham Palace gates. What does this mean? Yes, I'm very nervous about what's going on there. All the rats come on, let me, the rats here. Oh, put my feet up. Out. Rah, rah, get out. Rah, rah. I'm here. The rat's here. Hang on. This fucking rat. Oh, it's big. Comes in. Oh, just put my legs up.
Given a massive talk on how our country's been slaughtered through law, and now you're jumping.
Fucking rat in my kitchen and it's in the rubbish. It's big. It's like big as a cat. It's huge.
He
Oh,
lives in Thailand, people, if you don't know.
I just ignore it because I don't want to deal with it. But if I can hear it rummaging around, it scares me. Yeah, but it's gone now.
You've been ignoring it
You
for
have
a
to.
while.
I've been ignoring it for months. There must be many babies. There's probably a dozen of them in there by now.
There'd be more than that. God, they breed like.
oh, what?
But there's a little hole under the door. They can go outside if they want. So I suppose they'll go outside. I don't know.
You've just
And-
floored me though. I'm when you talked about that, and then I realised why our prisons are full and why they're just continuously going. It's a revolving door into our prisons, and I really understand why now.
What's all going on with the kids? Why they're taking the kids away?
Well,
out
not
of
what
everything.
this whole law thing.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, we don't have proof, but if you've worked in corrections, you just see it's a revolving door.
Yes.
It's just a continuous
never
for
ever
many
ever.
of them for decades.
Yeah, never ever reduces. They want the prisons full. They want the child care places full, and they want the courts full with these cases.
Yeah, they want them
and
full.
they do. Whereas the Queen didn't. The Queen's Law didn't. Now she said that the coat of arms has been removed from Buckingham Palace. So we're going to have to be really looking at that. Hopefully we can work with John and work with Alfred, and they've got their King's Law. I can see where he's going. He's saying we want to go back to the King's Law because he wants to get out of. He probably didn't know about Lexis Nexis, but when he knows about that, he'll be thinking. but I'm thinking that I don't think they can take the Queen's Law in certain parts of the Queen's Law. They can't take it from us. I think that they can't because it's been given to us. This document here, signed at the palace, says in perpetuity. And I believe all of our countries have got this for every single area, have got one of these. So you have to just search and find them. And so I think that they can have all their laws, but they're not allowed to make laws that are repugnant to ours. And if they do, we can prosecute them.
It's possible it is hanging on. They haven't got rid of it.
No,
It's still in our legislation. And why is it in our legislation and why aren't they not talking about it? We know why they're not talking about it, but it must be pretty strong if it's still sitting in our legislation, and it would be scaring the shit out of them. And I don't know. It's like
the thing is, I think that if Butterworth's made a law that was repugnant to our law, we were able to sue them. And what I think that it has to be reasonable is that if Lexis Nexis has bought Butterworth, then if they make a law that is that hurts us, that they make a law that is repugnant, and then we've got to pay money to people because they've been affected by that. In actual fact, the Lexis Nexis company has to be responsible for that. It has to be that they've got to pay. If we can go to the court with our 1908, we say, because you made this law, those people were badly affected, and our country, with our taxes, has had to pay those people because you were irresponsible in making that law. I think, we have to make Lexis responsible, just like Butterworth was responsible, and presently they're not.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's something
rather than it come out of our taxpayers.
Yeah, because if they made the law, they've made the law that New Zealand will be bound by any international instruments. And if you go and read those United Nations laws where they're promised houses, they're promised money, they're promised air tickets, they're promised citizenships, they're promised nationalities, they're promised all of those things are promised, and we never said that they could have any of that. We didn't sign that. They signed it for us.
The possibility that Lexis Nexis can pay for all these people that the New Zealand government has been allowing into the country.
They write all the laws for those people, and every time that those people need a lawyer, it's all paid through Lexis. So the more immigrants and the more immigration laws that they have to protect them and all of that, the more money Lexis gets billions of dollars through them.
But that's not ours.
Yeah, but it is ours because we pay them. We are paying for it.
Yeah, we're the taxpayer.
Yeah,
they've even got their own little thing, and now if you go into the MSD, the WINS website, there's a special little place for these new people to our country, these new refugees, and they have a special little place to go and apply for this special little thing.
Yeah, all this special little things.
And our people are living on the streets.
Mm-hmm. Yes, our people are living on the streets, living in cars, can't even afford to buy any food for themselves. And those people, they've got free special English classes, all paid by us. They've got their advocate centres set up, all paid for by us. See, over here in Thailand, they don't pay for any of that. That's all paid for by the people coming into the companies are private companies, and when you go to get their services, you have to pay for them. See, if I want to do a visa in Thailand, I've got to go to a visa service and I've got to pay them for everything. Government doesn't pay nothing for other people because why should, no, we're not supposed to be paying for all those people and all those things. That money belongs to, so then we have lawyers paid by Lexis Nexis who are paid by our government, who are paid by us. It's in their best interest to bring as many of those people into the country as they possibly can, because they need a lot of assistance, legal assistance, and it's all got to be paid for by Lexis. All of Lexis Nexis, yeah, all of it. Whereas
Then you don't have to have an operating certificate. Anyone can be a solicitor.
Yes,
God.
yes, and they actually, this is how much money they're making. We have noticed, when I read the cases, all those lawyers that got blocked by the Mannix law because they had let their solicitors' licenses slide and just only done human rights, which has nothing to do. Our common law courts are Queen's common law courts. And so you have to have special licenses to work within them. And since they haven't been using common law in our countries for decades, and since 1973, and have replaced it with this new American law, well, it's the lawyers are not making any money. And so the lawyers have decided it's so lucrative to them that they have decided to let their law licenses slide and have not kept up with it. Because to keep your license, it's like a doctor. You have to keep up. You have to keep going and doing courses, and you have to keep up with the laws that are coming out, and you have to keep going and doing. And if you don't do that, you lose your lawyer's license. And this is so lucrative to them that they're quite happy to lose their lawyer's license so that they can work in this Lexis law. That's how lucrative it is for them, that they don't even want to have a license.
Well, it's obviously lucrative for a lot of people.
Yeah.
For all the people that seem to be overseeing us.
All the people.
It must be lucrative for them too.
You see, these countries are our corporation that belongs to us. And when the Crown Law, because they just had a parliamentarian said, where is the Crown Law? Why aren't the Crown Law coming in, stepping in and shouting out when the Parliament is making these laws that are repugnant? Why aren't the Crown Law? And the Crown Law aren't, but why aren't they? Because we, the directors of our own corporation, of our country, we are not going to the court. So that's what we've got to start doing. It's going to be a long road. And
my God, that Crown Law solicitor that was working for our respondents, I don't think he's a human rights. I don't think he has an operating certificate either.
No,
I'm sure.
I don't.
He doesn't, does he?
No, because they didn't. Whenever they have their licenses is put up on the thing, but they only put him up as, they did put him as Crown Counsel, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't even think the lawyers are licensed in the Queen's Law. The only ones licensed in the Queen Law is in the High Court. And so this is quite the little scam they've got going there. Yeah. And then
this is screwing with people's lives big time.
It is.
On top of COVID.
Illusion.
They have made billions in the law. Oh, so here she says, is this all leading up to one world government and 10 kings as described in the Bible? Yes, it is, because they've got one company. They bought up all the law in all the English-speaking countries, and that one company is manipulating our countries to create legal issues to make money. And then they also own, so that is Lexis. Then they own the information services, so that is all the computer. Then they own all the libraries in all of our countries. That is all the books, every single book, and that's why they're throwing out many, many books with all our histories, all the books that they can't make money from. They're throwing them all out, and they're rewriting hundreds of new books with hundreds of new histories that don't belong to us, and they get the royalties from those books every time they're in one of our schools, every time they're in one of our libraries, every time it's ever quoted from, they're getting the royalties, and all our old historical books are being binned. Binned.
But
So
here's
there's
something.
What's that,
But
Sharon?
here's guys. You go to any opportunity shop, or they call it the huku shop here. They have New Zealand history books.
Yes, we've got to be buying them up. So they're on. Yeah, you've got to get them, and we've got to go back and check all our history. So they own that. So they've got the law, then they've got the computer and everything there, the information services. Then they've got all the books. Then they've got all the libraries. And they own all the media, and our countries have recently been giving millions of dollars to the media to use quotes. They go to the Lexis, they go to the Nexis database, and they find similar stories to the story that they want to write about, and they add some of that 50%, like they're doing in Canada. They add, this is the 50%. They add 50%, and then our government pays them for that information that went in there, and they're having to do it as part of their contract that they've made. I'd love to see what the Lexis contract is with New Zealand. I'd love to see that. I'll be a flight. So she's saying, where do you get your resources and information, please? KTW. All you've got to do is Google Lexis Nexis. Google Lexis Nexis. Now, a lot of
Follow the whakapapa.
Yeah, follow the whakapapa. Some of it from the court cases, from like the Mannix from the court cases, I'm not going to tell you that today, but at some point I'll try to get it up. We're on our appeal at the moment, so I'm very busy, but I wanted to do this Lexis Nexis to let everybody know what's going on. The video service the other day of Jacinda Ardern coming out of Blackrock, well, is she selling off our country? They don't need to sell off our country. Because look what they've got. They've got this whole corporation in the Lexis Nexis making billions and billions of dollars out of the misery of our people. The more misery in our country, the more people in jail, the more sexually abused by government workers and state care workers, the more court cases, the more deaths, the more COVID, the more everything.
Oh, you've got that lecturer at Waikato, that one that come off Manus Island, haven't you? As well.
Yes.
So
I won't talk about that today, but that caliber. Yeah, the guy that was brought in off Manus Island, a refugee, and he was in New Zealand for 1 week, not even supposed to be in New Zealand, and they made him a fellow at the University of Canterbury in Tainui history. He became he was a refugee from Iran, and he became a historical researcher at the University of Christchurch after being in New Zealand on his visa for 1 week.
but that's the caliber of what do you call it, of our academics coming through. So what I'm saying is what our young people are getting taught now and coming out with, no wonder they are so focused towards all this, and they don't look back. as far as they're taught or they care that what has happened in history means nothing to them.
No,
Yeah.
because our history didn't cost us money. The Queen and the King said, the country belongs to you. It doesn't belong to the church, doesn't belong to the Pope. It belongs to you, and you can manage it. But they said, you are children, and so we're going to put these people in place for you. But if they step out of line, they gave us the power to go and remove those people. And
Yeah.
but yeah, they did. But this one here, Rosemary says, Kate. So she says, this is from Rosemary Quartz. She says, Kate, I think some of the Emirated service providers keep interfering with your broadcast. I think that they might be listening. And Rosemary, presently, I am, quite frankly, I do believe I'm risking my life to bring this to the public, but I've made the video's up, and people are going to be seeing it. And the more people that see it, so I've got something in my eye, bring your people in. The more the people that know about it, the more people that see it, the safer we're all going to be. We know they're listening, but it's a hell of a choice. This is isn't that right, Sharon?
That is right, Kate.
This is the way we fight for our country now. They used to go to war and fight in the trenches with the bullets, but now we're not going to war and fighting with bullets, but it's an information war. It isn't the war like they used to have.
And a spiritual one.
And a spiritual one. You have to be true of heart. You're not going to get money. You have to be true and pure of heart, that you're thinking about your country, you're thinking about your ancestors and what they did for you, saving what your ancestors did for you, and you're thinking about your future generations and what you're going to be leaving them with. And for that, we're all risking our lives. And I will do that.
Yeah, and if it means to put your life on the line, then it's worth it. And like my father went to war in World War II, and I'm not gonna sell that off. I'm not selling off the fact that my father fought for a country, and he fought in the Māori battalion, and you got all these Māoris running around with all muckled up, saying that, yelling about how great Māoridom is. Well, I don't see no Māori leaders doing anything about what's happening now. And and you can't tell me they don't know. You can't tell me they do not know this stuff.
Yep.
Yes, I think that they do. I think that they do all know. They're all in on it, and they all. This is what happens. Is they all get knowledge about it, but when they get to the point where the money is involved, they all get stuck because they're not pure of heart. And they get the green-eyed monster comes in. They want to get the money, and then they just shut down. So we just need people that are pure of heart, not interested in money, but interested in. No, it's not going to be about money. You're going to have to come in. So we're in the matrix. That's what Rosemary says. Immigration. Yes, we know immigration is a real worry. And we know that they're watching, and we know that they're quite dangerous, especially to me. But so we've got to bring your friends and ask your friends to come and join the channel. Ask them to come and watch. But that's the story of the Nexus Lexis. Don't worry about the Queen. But I think so. We're trying to get into the court, and we're trying to put some things in place so that at least we can. We know where we're going. We know what's wrong, but we're still a little bit trying to get there, aren't we, ladies?
Yeah,
it's
but
hard.
You don't know where to go for the help just to get us over the bumps that we're facing at the moment. But if like we say, it's a spiritual war, we will get whatever has to happen will happen if we're meant to be there.
Yeah,
that's like
right.
Yes,
so right.
We get bumps, but we really are in the matrix. We really are in the matrix, and we're going through times, and we get to doors, and I'll just tell you, just like exactly like in the Matrix, is that when Neo went down into the evil lands, and he would meet people, and he would talk to them, and he would be good friends with them. Sometimes he would even no, I don't think he fell in love, but he would be very, very good friends with them. Yeah, no sex. There's no sex in Kate Floss's world. There's no sex, even though I know a lot of people want me, but you can't have me. I know I want to.
Oh, they want to you, huh?
Yeah, because they are. Because look, because I've got this
You get
hot little.
sit down. You'll get our video taken.
Ah, right, you didn't see that. But I mean, I am a hot little potato. I know that, but you can't have me. Sorry to say. They all want me, Sharon. They all want me. I'm popular. Just like Neo, they always sending people to see them. But when you're there, you're going to meet people. You meet people, and this is true, isn't it, ladies? We met people, we made good friends with them, and then they would say something, and we knew in that moment that they were traitorous to us, and we knew we had to move them away, get them off of us, and go back to our free radical. So in this time, you need to stay a free radical. Be careful who's attaching to you. Don't let people attach to you. Be wary of anyone and everyone. Don't even trust me. Trust no one. You don't know who's in the Matrix. You don't know what they're after, but we walk in the light, so we don't hide information, do we? We just put it right out there. If you're walking in truth, it's going to be in truth. So we don't hide anything. And so everyone can come, the traders can come, and then whatever. But you have to be careful of the people in the Matrix. Sometimes you think they're your friend when they're not. What does Rosemary say? Rosemary says, Kate, trust me. I know we are at risk when we speak up. Already been run down, she's saying. Yeah, Rosemary says, we know that we make ourselves targets, and we're really willing to risk that for our ancestors and our future children and future generations, and for our country. He said that we've got to save our country, right? Yeah.
At the end of the day, I know for me, you're as powerful on the other side of the veil as you are on this side.
Yeah.
They can bring it.
They can.
Bring it
That's
on.
how angry I am at what you told me you're going to tell me something I needed to know. This is heavy shit. But then you'll give a disclaimer that this is all conspiracy theory and
it's all conspiracy theory. I'm full of bullshit, and nothing that I say is truthful. It's all bullshit. I'm the biggest bullshit artist on.
That's your disclaimer.
On that, it's my disclaimer. I don't believe in anything that I say. It's all a big fat lie, and I'm a liar. Yeah, I'm a liar.
But you have got those papers, though.
But I have got the papers. I've got the papers. But now let's pay homage to Nene. Nene. Now, Nene was the one that he also signed these documents. He's the one that I believe that did it in the South Island together with the St. Pauli people. So Nene is a great chief, and I believe that every single one of your tribes has one of these with your names on it. I believe that they have them. And they're trying to pick you off one by one. And so you have to kind of find it. And so we're all looking for these documents. All of you are on one of these documents, I believe. Whether you come from England, it doesn't matter whether you come from England, and it doesn't matter whether you come from Australia. Every single one of you has got a document like this. And every single one of
you found that?
Oh, Sharon, it just kind of turned up one day. I don't know. People send me stuff. And
out of it, things that just come to light.
This one here just come up. This one here, The charter for the South Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just turned up there. I don't even know how that came from. I typed in Sixtus Versa Dern, and this turned up on Sixtus Versa Dern.
Oh,
Yes, I think it was. Yeah, I think it's on Sixtus Versa Dern. So yeah, I think it did, because it's only just turned up, and I didn't even know. So this has just turned up. I think it did. I might be lying to you, but so I think you've all got to go back and trace where you've come from, where your birth certificate is. Don't leave the corporation. Whatever you do not leave the corporation. They're looking for
no,
people.
you can leave. You can leave.
Wow. Yeah, you can leave if you want to leave. I mean,
No, you can leave.
yeah, leave.
The
More
more
for
they
me.
leave, the more for us.
More for us. But there are groups that have been going around, and they know what these documents are, and they're stealing names. They're stealing your identity. This is all identity theft. They're sending in floozies. The floozies come in and sex with the males, with the virulent males, to get them to go onto the dark side and not walk on the light side to save their country. There's many floozies around, because we all know the men are ruled by their dicks, because they are. And it's no good floozying with me, because I know I'm very popular, but you won't be getting me. Oh. Right, that's it, ladies. We're done. Right. Rosemary, thanks for coming. KTW, thanks for coming. It's a long video, but bring your friends. Go and Google Lexis Nexis, and then try to read about it, and try to learn about your history, learn about which country you came from. Our ship came from Germany. Find out what ship you're on. You have to know what ship that you're on, and find out which part of the country. Eh?
She could be on the 8th waka with you, Kate.
You could be on the 8th waka with me.
Exactly.
You could. If you're on my waka, we want everyone to come in, and the Nene waka, Nene's waka, they're with me, and the St. Pauli waka, we're with Nene. Come in and join the waka, and we're going to go and fight all of this, and anyone can come in and be with us, and Alfred and John are they're on the King's Court, so they're going down another path, but I'm thinking that our paths are not that far different now that I'm seeing. Yeah, I'm believing that they're not that far different from what we are. So they've been working for 30 years on this. So they're on the King's Court, and I'm on the Queen's Court. All right. So we're going to see. Right, I'm going to end this stream. What if part of us was shipwrecked? I'll join your waka, Kate. You can join my waka, Rosemary. You can
join all of our
We'll
waka.
have to check, though, because we are in the matrix, and we have to be careful of the non people that come into the matrix. But if you pass the test, Rosemary, you can come on my waka, the St. Pauli. So you can, because you're allowed to take people on your waka, aren't you? We'll have to set up
a floozies, though.
No floozies. You can bring some hot males, though. Hot males that don't you want a male sometimes, Sharon?
No.
You might get the urge.
What, long distance?
You might get an urge.
Only you have those long distance ones.
Long distance urges. You might get an urge. You can bring the males. Nice ones, though. Nice ones, you know.
Yeah, you can, but you're our only floozy, Kate.
Yeah.
What are we going to call the male floozies? We can't call the males floozies, because it's only women that are floozies. What are the men going to be?
You're probably not allowed to call them males anymore.
Sharon's got a name. What are we going to call them, Sharon? Those men that try and tempt us. They tempt us.
Gigolo.
She doesn't know any hot males. Oh, there's no hot males, only hot females. Oh, well. Oh, well, that's funny. Right, bye, Mary, Rosemary. Don't worry, Rosemary, because I'll find you a hot male somewhere. There must be one somewhere. I'll find one.
Somewhere amongst the Waka, eh?
Hey?
Somewhere amongst the Waka.
There's somewhere on the
Surely.
Waka, there's a hot male for sharing. We'll share.
Oh my
A
God.
hot male for sharing. We could have a harem of males. Oh, feeding us grapes. We could have that's
like the Amazonians.
Yeah, we could have a harem of males
Some
in-
males, hey,
in those
some
little
males, that's all they're useful for is
feeding us grapes. They can feed us grapes and wine and rub our feet,
Yeah, that's probably all they can do.
and that's
is
all
feed
they.
the grapes.
That's all they're good for, isn't it? Grapes and rubbing our feet. She's laughing. Rosemary's laughing. Yeah, grapes, wine, rub our feet, and
It's the virile.
the
males.
virile. We want the
Yeah,
virile
that are-
males.
that are useful.
Virile.
They can come and help you get rid of your rats.
And they can get rid of the rats. And my house is full of rats.
And your neighbours, you won't have to run out there with a broom.
And the neighbours, I had to chase the neighbours down the road with the broom the other day
The
because
other
they
day,
keep.
Sharon, she had to leave me, and she goes, "I've got to go," and I'm online, and she disappears, and all I can hear is this yelling and tying. And I thought, what is she doing? And I thought, oh my God, she's arguing with somebody. And she comes back, she had her broom, and she'd gone to attack the neighbours.
With the broom. Yeah, because they bring the cat down to shit at my house. I've got to send the rats down here. Now I've got the cat shitting. And then the lady across the road, she puts out a bowl of bird feed and the pigeons are all coming and shitting all over the house. So I have been going down to her house, getting the bird feed bowl and bidding it every day. She must be running out of bowls now. And then the other lady down the road has been sending the cat shit down to my house, and now the cat's coming to shit at my house. So I've been scooping the cat shit and taking it back to her house, and I gave it back to her. I said, here, you can have it back. And so I put it, so then she'd come and buzz the buzzer, and she said, hey, why are you bringing the cat shit and putting it back at our house? And I said, because you've been bringing the cat shit in my house. And she said, could they feed all the cats, the stray cats? So I said, well, if you feed them, you've got to clean up their shit. She said, well, they're not my cats. And I said, well, stop feeding them. So anyway, I had to get the broom out, didn't I, Maxine? And I got the broom out, and they're all running down the road, and I'm screaming at them. And but guess what? There's no more cat shit. And they're not putting the bowl of bird feed out, but she's hiding it behind the fence. So the birds are still behind the fence, but I'm going to get the disinfectant and some poison and sprinkle it all in front of her house, I think is what I'm going to do. I'll get the
But
rat.
you didn't say that. You didn't say that on YouTube.
Eh?
You can't do that to God's animals. Just go out with your broom and chase them away.
No, but how am I going to get rid of the birds?
Go and chuck food down the other side of the street.
Hey, get Lexis Nexis to sort it
Okay.
out.
I'll get the Lexis Nexis. So all these countries, all the countries that have left the Commonwealth, the reason they all left the Commonwealth is because they didn't want to pay Lexis Nexis, and they all wrote their own laws. That's what they did. They all got their laws done before the Lexis Nexis came in. You go and look
That's
at when
right.
the 54 countries started leaving the Commonwealth and left us silly bastards, 14 countries in the Commonwealth, they left all of us in it. What girl doesn't want virile bloody neighbours, the cats and the cats? Yeah. And yeah, we do want the virile man to come and deal with the birds and the cats and the rats at my house. A virile man. Yeah, and the 54 countries left the Commonwealth, and if you go and research when they all left, it all started happening around about the 1970s, and they've been leaving one by one because none of them want to pay Lexis Nexis, because Lexis Nexis is creating all sorts of problems in their countries. Tonga wrote a law that they do not recognise any of the human rights that come out of the United Nations. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Thailand, all the Asian countries have written their own constitutions, their own laws, and they refuse to use Nexus Lexis. Only us old muggins are using it, and I don't even mind using it. It's not a bad thing to use it, but when they're creating heartache and chaos in your country so that they can boost their revenue of the amount of times that people are going to the court and flooding the court system, well, then you have to say, well, that's kind of not
enough.
Not just that,
Enough.
not just that. There is that law lecturer I've been listening to. So now the West is being blamed for all the chaos in the world, but specifically the Commonwealth West.
Yes.
Not the American, and it's the Americans that are doing it.
Well, the Americans were told that they had to find another way to create wars that didn't include bombing people and shooting people. And I think they've found their way. Yeah, because the other countries have been saying, hey, you can't just, they've got 900, you can't just keep going around bombing countries all the time and making all your money from your $1 trillion weapons industry. You have to find another way to make money. And so it seems to me that this is the way that they found, because the Queen was not, she hasn't been cared for, to be honest, and they haven't had enough money to keep it running. They haven't, and she's just given up because they came in and bought it all up, and she couldn't stop it.
But what is happening, and all his lectures are, they're pinpointing England. That's who they're pinpointing as being the cause of all the, and maybe so with all that, the Freemasonry crap and all that. But the chaos here is the Lexis Nexis at the moment, as a conspiracy theory. As a conspiracy theory that we're all bullshit artists and none of us are lawyers, so we really don't know what we're talking about. But this is what we think in our warped, insane matrix mind. In our matrix. It's in our matrix. But yeah, that is quite right. It's really becomes clear once you know about that Nexus Lexis, and you know about the Queen's Law being sold, and you can see why they're trying to bring down the Queen, because in their mind, if they remove the Queen, all these laws that I've just told you about, with the removal of the Queen, they're gone. They're all gone, and we have not put in any protections. But it says in there, if the Queen is gone, we have to replace her with someone else. And so it tells us that we have to go to the Queen of Denmark, and we get the Queen of Denmark, and she then becomes the owner of us. The shelf that we sit on. The shelf that we sit on. So it does tell us that that's what we've got to do. It tells us it tells us everything that we need to do. They planned far ahead. And and the countries,
And did you know that Denmark pulled out of all those mandates and all those COVID things? They pulled out of them. They don't have them.
Yeah, they don't, and they're targeting Germany quite a lot too. And all of this trouble began hundreds and hundreds of years ago in Germany. This is where it all began, and it was the Germans that stood up and fought them off and beat them twice in our history. Twice the Germans rose up and stopped, but they won't rise this time. They won't be able to. So that's a bit of a worry. Yeah, they've risen. They've beat them twice when they've tried to do this. Twice in history that these evil people have tried to do this, and twice in the history the Germans stood up and won the day. But I don't know. And they're targeting all these common law people that came out of America in the 1970s. They only went to certain states in America, and I think that they were the states that were Commonwealth states. And then they went to our 5 common law countries to get rid of our common law and put us under their law. And so that's what they've done. And I don't know, we're going to sort it out. We're going to do our best, aren't we?
And I'm thinking that's why we've got all these crimes that are happening too, because they go to court and they go under that Lexis Nexis. There's a heap of them.
Well, imagine the protests too. What about all the court cases that came out of the protests?
Yes.
With what the police did, with all that.
Every single, they get it from double-sided. They get it when we have criminals, they get it, and then they get it, but they get the most money. The most money that they get is when a government official does something wrong against us or makes a law that is repugnant to us, and then the people take those laws to court. That's where they get the most money. The most. So it suits them. They need to have a group of government officials that are willing to make laws that are harmful to the people. They need it.
And there's a whole bunch of them sitting there in bills, proposed bills waiting to come through that are just going to take...
Hundreds and hundreds of bills are being put through Parliament with hundreds and hundreds of laws that all are written by Lexis Nexis. And every single one of those laws, every single time that they make a new law, it creates a royalty for Nexis Lexis. And if you go and look at the parliamentary bills, they're putting through hundreds upon hundreds of bills. At any one time, there's 50, 60, 70, 80 bills. And the bills that they put in pre-1986, you can't find the records of how many bills were put through per year. But since 1996, some years there've been like more than 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 bills put through in 1 year. Like
for the last 3 years, the amount of bills that have come through have been thousands. And you go to one bill, and because I was trying to keep up and read them and see where we're going. So you can go into a bill, and then a proposed thing would be in there, and then it'll take you to another one and another one on that one bill.
Yeah.
It'll just and then you just get tired looking.
You go if you go and read the acts, any of the acts or constitutions that were created pre-1990, you go and have a look at them. They're not connected to any other law or any other act. They're a document in their own right, and so you used to pay for Butterworths for that one document, and you got a whole document of that whole law. But if you go and look at the modern day laws, there's like 10, 15 other documents that you have to go to read in order to understand that one document. And if you go to all the court rulings, you go and get a court ruling that was pre-1980, those court rulings, and then you go and get the court rule, get a few for your comparison, and then you get the court rulings of the present day. The present day are citing or quoting laws from America, laws from Canada, laws from Australia, laws from England, and they're also in all international laws. And you can't even understand you can't even understand the ruling until you go and read everything in the law that they quoted. They say, refer to this law. You go to that law and you find the one that it's talking about, but then that will say, refer to this law, and this law. And so you have to go and read all of those laws to know this law to this law, and then you go and read there, which is connected. And so they're from the one quotation in that one court document is connected to another quotation from another document that they get the royalty, and then another one and another one and another one. And so there, obviously, this is it's a crime, really.
Yeah, and that's what we've been doing, Sharon. It's been hell trying to work through the say. It's just been hell.
And we've been noticing we're not understanding the English, haven't we, Maxine?
Yeah.
We can't understand the English that they're saying. It's very, very, very confusing. And it's almost like you're reading a language that's not your own. And it is, because American language is not the same as English language. Very different.
And that also tells us why, in a conspiracy theory, why when they're advertising the jobs for the court clerks, you don't have to have any, the advertisement says you do not have to have any experience. And not only that, half of those court clerks that you've been dealing with are foreigners who English is their second language. Because they don't have to know this shit, because no one's going to question it.
Because no one's going to question it.
They thought.
Yeah,
they thought. We were not supposed to get in. We weren't supposed to get in, but we just had luck on our side on that day. And the person that we let us in, and once you get into the matrix, it's more difficult for them to get you out, because you're entitled to appeals. And according to this document here that I have, according to this, I'm entitled to appeal all the way to England, because it says here in perpetuity, and it comes out of, and since I've got its matching, I've got its twin here with my name on it, my ancestor's name. I actually am able to actually go to England with these two documents. I actually can go to Westminster and say to them, hey, you promised us on here that we would be subjects under subject law, and they not let us in the court. They're not letting us in the court, and England will order them. So we've got to go through this process first. I don't even care if they say no. Good if they say no, because I really will go to Westminster Court. I really will go there. And you'll come, because I'll be spending my husband's retirement money, and I'll get you a ticket.
No, I'll sell my house and
we'll be going. So we've got to go through this process. We were supposed to finish the video, but we get talking. We I'll tell you something, people, my YouTube fans, we are on this 24 hours a day. We sleep it, we breathe it, we think about it. We get up in the morning and we talk about it, we study it. When I call when I call Morpheus and I call the Oracle, it doesn't matter. When I call them, I don't even tell them I'm going to be calling. I just get on there and I say, I'm opening up. They are right there, aren't they? Aren't you? and there's never a time, I don't think I've ever,
We're not going to sell you out.
no, and they don't
No,
sell me
no,
out,
Sharon.
no, because we love
No.
our great grandchildren. We love our country. We love our country just too much. We would never, there is no amount of gold enough in the
Yeah.
world to make us sell out our country to anyone, would
Yep.
we? Never. And we want our future children to be protected, and we
Yep,
don't
we
want
want
them
to.
being, treated like this.
Yep.
And we want our future children to be able to go to the court and say, this law that you made, I've got a problem with it, and this is why I've got a problem with it, and you need to fix it. And if you don't fix it, then you need to be leaving your position that I pay you for. And we want our people should always have that ability to do that. Always. And we never want them to not have that ability. And that's the ability that they're trying to take away from them. And so we're going to fight very hard for you. So Rosemary's,
We're willing to give our lives. for
we
this.
are
Yeah,
willing
we
to
are.
give our lives.
And
We
so,
are.
Yeah, we're willing to
Yeah.
give our lives for this if that's what it takes.
If that's what it takes, if I die, someone else is going to pick this up now. It's not going to end with my death. So you can think that killing me is going to end it, but I've put the Lexis out. It's a conspiracy theory, and it's all my own opinion, but I've put it out there for people to make their own. And so if I die tomorrow, listen to me. I'm going to look you right in the eyes. Listen to me. If I die tomorrow, I really don't give a shit. I've got out my YouTube. The whole freaking world knows about this now. And I've already got my case in the court, and it's all written there for people to follow up. Even if I'm gone, this case is going to go through the court because it's already in there. And there are people on that document that will follow up the document. And if they can't follow up, someone will come up behind them. This is not going to end. So, it's probably not, do what you will. Do what you will, because I don't care, because I'm fighting for my country. I'm fighting for my country, and I don't give a shit because I'm going to fight for my country. So there. Told them that, Sharon.
Well,
Yes, you
yeah,
did.
put up Nene. Put up Nene because it started in their time, and we're still doing this today. So you know that man was part of this whole thing, along with a whole bunch of others. And it's like you think you're going to silence, especially Māori. You're taking on Māori as well, like
You are. Yeah.
And he's a Māori, and they put this shit in place for us, and we're going to carry it on.
And we're going to carry it on for them, because they damn well knew what they were doing. They did. They certainly did. And I'm telling you something, I've got a lot of wakas behind me as well, and in front of me too. I've got them behind me, and I've got them in front of me. I've got them on my waka too. And so yes, they did. The ancient people on our lands of our 5 countries, they put some things in their place because they knew that this day was going to come and that we were going to be in trouble. And they put very strict, these documents that they made for us are all written in perpetuity forever, and they cannot be changed. And so we've got a lot of power, and the only problem that we have is that we had forgotten how to use it, but we know now. So we're going to be getting there, right? So I'm going to end that there. See you later. Sit down.
How long does it take to stop? Is it stop?